New York City, the city that never sleeps, a place where dreams are made and sometimes where nightmares are born. It was supposed to be our fresh start, a new chapter in our lives filled with promise and excitement, a place for new beginnings. We had high hopes and big city dreams. My partner Mark and I, along with our 1-year-old daughter, Lily, moved into a charming pre-war apartment in a quiet Brooklyn neighborhood. The building had character, history, and a certain allure that drew us in. The year was 2023. The city was bustling with life, and we were eager to be a part of it. But the excitement of city life quickly turned into a chilling nightmare. The apartment, with its vintage charm, held secrets we were not prepared for. It began subtly, almost unnoticeable. A flicker of lights, a cold draft in the hallway. 3 months passed before the strangeness started. At first it was easy to dismiss these occurrences as quirks of an old building. M as Mark. The first sign was a creaking floorboard. It seemed harmless, just the building settling, or so we thought. It was always in the dead of night. The silence would be broken by the sound of footsteps, slow, heavy footsteps, right outside our bedroom door. We'd hear footsteps, slow, heavy footsteps. They seemed to be pacing as if someone was walking back and forth. Mark dismissed it as the building settling. I wasn't so sure. There was an unease that settled in my chest, a feeling that something was off. Then came the slamming doors, loud, violent slams. They'd happen at random times, day or night. They'd echo through the apartment, sending shivers down my spine. Something wasn't right. The sense of dread grew stronger with each passing day. We were no longer alone in our home. We tried to ignore it, to rationalize it, but the fear was undeniable. Our dream of a new beginning was turning into a haunting reality. We had to find out what was happening. The city that never sleeps had awakened something in our home, and it was up to us to uncover the truth. The unsettling events escalated. Whispers seeped from the walls. Unintelligible murmurings in the darkness. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Lily became increasingly agitated. Her sweet babbles turned into terrified cries. Her big, innocent eyes would dart around the room as if sensing an unseen presence. M as Mark. One evening, as I was rocking Lily to sleep, I felt a cold breath on the back of my neck. I spun around, my heart pounding. No one was there. The room was deathly silent except for Lily's soft whimpers. Fear began to consume me. It felt like we were being watched, hunted. The activity intensified, becoming impossible to ignore. Objects began to move on their own. One night I was making dinner while Mark was giving Lily a bath. Suddenly the ceiling fan in the kitchen, which was switched off, whirred to life on its highest setting. I froze, my blood running cold. EM as Mark. As I stared at the fan, a butcher knife flew across the room. It landed with a sickening thud at my feet. Terror gripped me. I ran to the bathroom, my screams echoing through the apartment. Mark met me, his face etched with concern. He couldn't explain it either. We were now living in a nightmare. Sleep offered no escape. The dreams started. Vivid, terrifying nightmares. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, my heart racing. They were always the same. A shadowy figure with glowing red eyes lurking in the corner of our bedroom. It never spoke, but its presence was enough to send shivers down my spine. And as Mark. One night I woke to Lily's blood-curdling screams. I rushed to her room and found her sitting up in her crib, her tiny finger pointing at the closet door.
"Man," she shrieked. "Bad man."
My blood ran cold. Desperate, we sought help from our local church. We had tried everything we could think of, but nothing seemed to work. The disturbances in our apartment were getting worse, and we were at our wits' end. The priest, a kind and compassionate man, listened intently to our story. He didn't dismiss our fears or make us feel foolish. Instead, he nodded understandingly, his eyes filled with concern.
"I will bless your apartment. This is serious. You are not alone in this battle."
He agreed to bless the apartment, his face grave. He gathered his tools, holy water, a crucifix and a prayer book, and prepared for the ritual. The room seemed to darken as he began, the air thick with anticipation. The air crackled with energy as he moved through each room, reciting prayers and sprinkling holy water. His voice was steady, unwavering, as he called upon higher powers to cleanse our home. For a moment I thought maybe this will work. Maybe the priest's faith and our desperation would be enough to drive out whatever was haunting us. Maybe we can finally have peace. But it was short-lived. The initial calm that followed the blessing gave us a false sense of security. A few days later, the strange occurrences resumed. It started with small things, objects moving on their own, cold spots in the rooms. The whispers returned, louder and more insistent. They seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, filling the silence with their eerie presence. The shadows grew darker, more menacing. They seemed to have a life of their own, shifting and moving in ways that defied explanation. The fear that had momentarily subsided returned with a vengeance. It was as if the entity had been angered by the priest's intervention and was now lashing out with renewed fury. We were trapped, imprisoned in our own home by an unseen force. The walls that once provided shelter now felt like a cage, and the place we called home had become a prison of fear and despair. We researched the apartment building's history, desperate for answers. We combed through old records, hoping to find some clue that would explain the strange occurrences we had been experiencing. Our investigation led us to a former tenant, a name that kept appearing in the documents. She was an elderly woman who had lived in our unit for decades, almost becoming a part of the building itself. She passed away in the apartment a year before we moved in. According to neighbors, her death was sudden and shrouded in mystery. She was a recluse who practiced dark magic, or so the neighbors whispered. They spoke of strange rituals and eerie chants that would echo through the walls late at night. Could she be the source of the paranormal activity? The idea seemed far-fetched, yet it was the only explanation that made sense. Was her spirit trapped within these walls, unable to find peace? The thought was both terrifying and heartbreaking. The thought sent chills down our spines. We considered moving, the fear gnawing at us every day, but something held us back. Was it the hope that we could somehow resolve this, or was it the fear of the unknown? We had invested so much in this apartment, both financially and emotionally. It was more than just a living space. It was our home. In our new life in New York City, we had dreams of urban living, of making a fresh start in this vibrant city. Could we really give up on our dreams so easily? The dilemma weighed heavily on us as we struggled to decide whether to stay and fight or to leave and start over elsewhere. Nights were the hardest. The eerie atmosphere of the apartment seemed to come alive, making it difficult to sleep. Every creak and groan of the building felt like a whisper from the past. We sought advice from friends and family, but their suggestions only added to our confusion. Some urged us to leave immediately, while others suggested we try to cleanse the apartment. We even tried cleansing rituals, hoping to rid the apartment of any lingering spirits, but nothing seemed to work. We felt trapped, both physically and emotionally. The apartment that was supposed to be our sanctuary had become a prison. In the end, we had to make a choice. Would we stay and continue to fight for our home, or would we leave and seek peace elsewhere? The decision was not easy, but it was one we had to make. Days turned into weeks, each one more terrifying than the last. The paranormal activity escalated, becoming a constant presence in our lives. We lived in a perpetual state of fear, never knowing what would happen next. The once comforting walls of our apartment now felt like a prison, closing in on us with each passing moment. Lily's once joyful laughter was replaced by frightened whimpers. She refused to sleep alone, clinging to us with a desperation that broke our hearts. The stress and fear were taking their toll on our relationship. We were exhausted, both physically and emotionally. We couldn't go on like this. Something had to change. One evening, as I was putting Lily to bed, I heard Mark scream from the living room. As Mark, the shadow. It spoke to me. I raced out to find him cowering on the floor, his eyes wide with terror. As Mark, it spoke to me. I didn't need to ask what it said. The look on his face told me everything I needed to know. We were no longer dealing with just strange occurrences. This was something far more sinister, far more evil. We were in over our heads. Our dream of a new life in New York City had become a living nightmare. We contacted paranormal investigators, desperate for answers, for any explanation that could shed light on the horrors we were experiencing. As Mark. Their equipment picked up strange electromagnetic readings, cold spots, and disembodied voices. They confirmed what we already knew. Our apartment was haunted, but they could offer no solution. They couldn't make the entity leave. We were trapped, forced to coexist with an evil that seemed to feed off our fear.
Every creak of the floorboard, every whisper in the walls sent shivers down our spines.
We were living on borrowed time. We tried everything to rid ourselves of the haunting, sage burning, salt circles, even confronting the entity head-on. Nothing worked. The paranormal activity continued unabated, growing stronger with each passing day. We were at our wits' end, our nerves frayed, our spirits broken. As Mark, Lily's sweet innocence was gone, replaced by a haunting awareness of the unseen world. She would often point to empty spaces, her eyes wide with fear, whispering, "M as Lily. They're here." Our daughter, our precious Lily, was being consumed by the darkness that enveloped our apartment. We're still living in the apartment. We have no choice. The entity has us trapped. Every night we go to bed with the fear that we might not wake up. Every creak, every whisper is a reminder that we are not alone. This is our life now. A terrifying existence where fear is our constant companion. This is our story. The story of our haunted New York apartment. A cautionary tale that reminds us that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't see.